Hi, welcome to Play Along. I'm Michael Gould. Now we have my friend Michael Berglund on bass, and we're going to show you how to do the bass drums hookup, creating simple grooves, starting with a bass line, and then creating the drum set groove from that. So we're going to do a 2-bar groove and build it up from there, and we'll show you how you can add and subtract parts in order to make your own grooves. So here we go. This is the 2-bar groove. So I would say the first thing you need to do is figure out what the tempo, what the pulse is, what the feel is. So we're playing in 4/4, and this is the quarter note pulse right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's really important to know what time signature you're in, of course, and what the pulse is. The second thing is, where is the bass line happening? What beat is it coming on? So if you count it out loud, it sounds like this. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and. So now an exercise that you can try is just to play the bass drum with the bass player. So make sure if you got some friends who are bass players or guitarists, just try this. It's great. It's actually harder than it seems. So let's just play the bass drum and the bass. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Here we go. Okay, good. Now that you have the bass drum together, I would say in this style of music, kind of funky, you just want to put the snare drum on 2 and 4. I'm going to use a rim click where you just hit the rim while keeping the stick on the head on 2 and 4. And then I'm going to put in the bass drum. So I'm going to put these both together. And here we go. Good, and then once you get that bass and the snare drum together with the bass player, then you can start adding in hi-hat patterns. And the first pattern I would say is just to add in the quarter note pulse. Okay? The other great thing is to rely on a metronome too. So when you first start off, have the metronome going so that both players, or even your whole band, can hear the metronome so you guys are playing in good time. So now I'm going to establish the pulse with my right hand on the hi-hat, and I'm going to play the bass drum and snare drum pattern that I already played. So here we go. Okay, then once you get that basic groove down, you could try to add eighth notes on the hi-hat. And again, the whole time you're really listening to the bass player. And even you can look over to the bass player and look at his hands and make sure that you're locking in the bass drum with his hands, so you're playing the same thing. It's always a great idea to look and see what's going on. Okay, so now I'm going to try eighth notes on the hi-hat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, and then that sounds pretty good. You can also move off the snare drum rim, and you can play just the snare drum on 2 and 4. Sounds like this: 3, 4. So now, other things that you can add into this loop, you can try to swing the hi-hat a little bit, or the whole pattern. So instead of playing 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, we can think about it more swung. da 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 da, 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. But you don't have to add in that many notes. You can just swing part of the hi-hat pattern. So I'll play a little swung hi-hat in there. 2, 3, 4. Okay, now you notice that I'm adding in a few bass drum hits on the longer of the two measures, and that's sort of like a call and response. So Michael is doing the first measure, and then he's holding out a long note in the second measure. I can add in some ideas in the second measure to answer his bass line on my bass drum. So what we have is sort of a call and response idea. So here we go. So this is the bass drum adding in some ideas. So you'll notice I'm still playing his part, but I'm adding in additional eighth notes into the bass drum pattern. Just remember, if you start adding too much, then the groove starts to falter a little bit. It gets too busy. Now, sometimes busy is good, but a lot of times busy is very, very bad. Just ask a bass player. So you want to make sure that you're locked in with this bass line. And the other idea is, instead of adding notes, is to take out notes. So maybe I won't play some of the notes on the bass drum and open it up even more, because eventually you're going to be playing with a guitarist, a singer, a keyboard player, a brass section, and if you're playing too busy, it's no good. So I can add even less, or not add less, but subtract things. So I'm going to try that real quick. Just very little bass drum and see what happens. 2, 3, 4. So it sounds pretty cool. It opens up a lot of possibilities for other soloists to play in between what we're doing. So a lot of times you get obsessed with playing so many notes that, you want to sound great. Look at me, ah. And actually taking away the notes is sometimes a much better complement to your drumming. All right, so that's a 2-measure phrase, and we're going to move on to a 4-measure phrase. So before we do, stop, practice with a metronome, get your buddies over here practicing bass and guitar, and keep it real simple. Have fun!